Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be looking at Financial Education, a book by Dr. Ephraim Oviawe. You know, you guys sent in some really interesting excerpts, and I'm kind of curious to see what kind of unconventional wisdom we can dig up.
You know what really got me was Dr. Oviawe's story. I mean, he started as like a traditional saver, you know, totally believed that bank deposits were the safest way to go. And then, bam, the financial crisis hits. And his whole world kind of shifts, you know?
It really makes you wonder, what if those safe options aren't actually the best way to build wealth?
That's exactly what he's saying. He's challenging that blind trust we have in banks, you know, especially those low-interest savings accounts.
Yeah, he actually calls bank deposits the illusion of savings. It's a pretty bold statement.
No, he backs it up, though, with the deposit lending cycle, you know? Basically, the banks take our deposits and lend them out to make a profit, and then they give us back a tiny fraction as interest. It's like they're making money off our money and we're getting the scraps.
And he really emphasizes this with his own experience. He saw a massive improvement when he shifted away from those traditional savings accounts. So what did he do instead?
Well, he explored other strategies, like high-yield savings accounts and CDs. They offer way better rates, especially for things like your emergency fund.
So it's not about like ditching banks entirely. It's more about being smarter with where we put our money.
Exactly. And there's more. He's also a big advocate for investment accounts. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, the whole nine yards. They do carry more risk than savings accounts, but over time, the returns can be much higher.
He actually compares the stock market to a roller coaster. You know, it can be scary at times, but if you hang on, the thrills are usually worth it.
Then there's real estate. Dr. Oviawe is a huge fan of real estate. He sees it as a way to protect yourself from inflation and generate rental income and potential appreciation.
He really frames it as a safety net. He bought his first rental property when he was facing financial uncertainty, and it ended up being a turning point for him.
It shows that you got to think outside the box, you know, especially when the old ways aren't working. He's all about challenging the status quo and finding what works for you.
So we're seeing a pattern here. Don't settle for those low-interest savings accounts. Explore those high-yield options. Maybe dip your toes into investments. And maybe even think about real estate.
And that brings us to another area where Dr. Oviawe breaks the mold, credit. I mean, this is where a lot of people get nervous, right?
Oh yeah, debt can be scary. I've definitely had my own credit card troubles.
Well, Dr. Oviawe was really hesitant to use credit cards at first. You know, he was afraid of debt, like many of us are. But he realized that when used the right way, they can be a powerful tool.
So how do you go from credit averse to using them strategically?
He learned to use the benefits while minimizing the risks. He talks about building credit history by using credit cards responsibly. Having good credit can lead to better loan terms and interest rates, and save you money in the long run.
It's like he says, think of your credit score as your financial GPA, the higher the better.
He also highlights the perks of rewards programs. Many cards offer cash back, travel points, discounts. It's like getting paid to spend money you were going to spend anyway.
But he does stress using them responsibly. Don't spend more than you can afford to pay back. That's how you avoid those interest charges.
He recommends finding a card with rewards that match your spending habits. If you travel a lot, go for a travel rewards card. Foodie, find a card with bonus points for dining.
So be strategic and make it work for you.
He even suggests using them for emergencies. Having that line of credit can give you peace of mind as something unexpected pops up.
But he's clear that they're not a replacement for a solid emergency fund. That's your first line of defense. Credit cards should be a last resort.
He makes this interesting comparison between credit cards and debit cards. Debit cards are like using cash, money you already have. And credit cards are like a small loan that you need to repay, preferably in full each month.
So using debit for everyday stuff that you can afford, and reserving credit for planned expenses or emergencies that you've budgeted for.
He also points out that credit cards can help with large purchases. You can spread out the payments over time, which makes big-ticket items more manageable.
Like when he bought his first music studio equipment, he used a credit card to finance it and then diligently paid it off every month, all while using the equipment to generate income.
He turned that purchase into an investment that helped him build his career.
Sounds like he's advocating for a balanced approach. Understand the different types, utilize the benefits, but always be aware of the risks.
And he doesn't just tell us what to do, he shows us how he did it. He talks about his own early mistakes with credit, like missing payments or overspending. He's very open about the lessons he learned.
It makes his advice more relatable, you know, like he's been there.
And it reinforces the idea that financial literacy is a journey We're all constantly learning and adapting.
Okay, so we've gone from rethinking bank deposits to using credit strategically. What's next on Dr. Oviawe's list of unconventional wisdom?
He takes us deeper into credit scores and lays out a plan for building and managing credit effectively. This is where he really gets into how to use credit to your advantage.
All right, let's unpack this credit score puzzle. What are some of his key insights?
Welcome back to our deep dive into Dr. Ephraim Oviawe's financial education. You know, we've been exploring his unique approach to personal finance, and now we're going to delve into the world of credit scores, a topic that I think a lot of people find kind of confusing.
It gets really interesting here, because he doesn't just tell you what a credit score is, he gives you actual strategies to build and improve it. Like he's saying, don't let your credit score control you, take charge and make it work for you.
Exactly. He breaks it down into simple steps anyone can follow. And his first piece of advice is all about making your payments on time.
He uses this great analogy. He compares your payment history to your reputation. Like every time you pay on time, you're building trust with lenders. But if you miss payments, it's like you're spreading gossip about your unreliability.
And that reputation, that payment history, that's a big part of your credit score. Lenders want to see that you're reliable and will pay back what you borrow.
So paying your bills on time is a must if you want good credit. No excuses. Set reminders, automate payments, whatever it takes to avoid late fees and dings on your credit report.
He also gets into credit utilization, which is how much credit you're using compared to your total available credit. The lower this ratio, the better.
Okay, how low are we talking? What's the magic number?
He recommends keeping it below 30%. He used to max out his credit cards when he was younger. Thought it meant he was a good spender.
That's a pretty common misconception.
It is. He learned the hard way that high utilization actually hurts your score. It makes lenders think you might be overextended financially.
So it's not about using all the credit you have, it's about using it wisely.
Think of it like a gas tank. You don't want to be running on empty all the time. It puts stress on your engine. Same with credit. Keep that utilization low and your credit score will be happy.
He also talks about having a diverse credit mix. What does that even mean?
It means having different types of credit accounts, like credit cards, loans, maybe a mortgage. It shows lenders that you can manage different types of financial responsibility.
So not just having a bunch of credit cards, it's about showing you can handle different kinds of debt responsibly.
He used to only have credit cards.
Yeah.
And realized it wasn't giving him a well-rounded credit profile. So he took out a small personal loan that he knew he could repay easily, just to diversify his mix.
That's a smart move. He's all about those small steps that make a big difference in the long run.
And he warns against applying for new credit too often. Each application can lower your score temporarily.
So don't go crazy applying for every credit card offer you see. Be strategic.
He also says to check your credit reports regularly. Catch any errors or suspicious activity. You want to make sure the information is accurate.
Good reminder. We should all be checking our reports at least once a year.
He actually found a mistake on his report that was hurting his score. He disputed it and got it fixed, which boosted his score.
See, it pays to be proactive. Don't just assume everything is right.
He then talks about using credit cards wisely. He's not against using them, but you got to be strategic.
He calls them a financial amplifier. They can amplify your financial well-being if you use them right, but also amplify your problems if you're reckless.
He suggests choosing cards with rewards that match your spending. He's got a whole system for maximizing rewards points, like a credit card hacker.
That's pretty cool.
And of course, always pay off your balance in full each month. Avoid those interest charges. He compares interest charges to a leak in your boat. If you don't plug it, it'll sink your ship.
That's a great visual. Pay off those balances so you don't drown in debt.
Use budgeting tools to track your spending and stay within your means.
Technology can be a big help here. There are so many apps and online tools for budgeting.
Reserve credit cards for planned expenses and emergencies that you've budgeted for. Don't use them for impulse buys.
He almost bought a fancy guitar on impulse with a credit card once. He stopped himself just in time, realizing it wasn't planned and he didn't need it.
It's about having that self-control. Ask yourself, do I really need this, or am I just caught up in the moment?
Understand the terms and conditions of your cards. Know the interest rates, fees, and rewards.
He reads all the fine print before signing up. Doesn't want any surprises later.
That's a good habit. Credit card agreements can be confusing, but you gotta know what you're agreeing to.
Then he moves on to managing and reducing debt. You know, life happens, and sometimes debt is unavoidable.
He got into credit card debt early in his career when he was struggling. He was embarrassed, but knew he had to face it.
He's very open about his struggles, which makes his advice feel more real.
Just how do you get out of debt? Did he use one of those debt repayment methods, like the snowball or avalanche?
He likes the snowball method. Start by paying off the smallest debts first. It creates a sense of accomplishment and motivation. Then you roll that energy into tackling the bigger debts, like a snowball picking up speed as it rolls downhill.
That's a great analogy.
Look into debt consolidation or refinancing too. Maybe you can lower your interest rates and payments. He refinanced his student loans to get a better rate and saved a ton of money.
Be proactive and find ways to manage that debt. Don't just let it sit there.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, get professional help. A financial advisor or credit counselor can help. There's no shame in asking for help.
He says it's like a broken bone. You wouldn't try to fix it yourself, you'd go to a doctor. So why tackle tough financial problems alone when there are experts who can help?
It's not about being perfect, it's about making progress. Even small steps towards reducing debt can make a big difference.
We've covered a lot on credit and debt. What's next on Dr. Oviawe unconventional wisdom list?
Now he takes us into tangible assets, investing in real estate, commodities, and infrastructure. He sees these as ways to diversify your portfolio and potentially protect yourself from inflation.
This is where it gets exciting. We're going beyond the usual stocks and bonds advice.
Exactly. He wants us to think outside the box when it comes to building wealth.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We're wrapping up our look at financial education